Hey friends, hope the morning's treating you well. I got my coffee. Hopefully you got yours if you want some coffee. This week was the 45th anniversary of Elvis Presley's death, and I was thinking about that, and I thought that'd be something worth talking about. Maybe you guys can tell me, where were you when you heard that Elvis had died? I can remember where I was. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but just out of curiosity, I started digging through some old newspaper archives. I was curious just to see what people were writing about Elvis passing away. And I found a newspaper. It was a Memphis Press Scimitar, Scimitar. I'd never heard of a scimitar before. I had to look it up, and I think that's the proper pronunciation. A scimitar is a curved sword, like a small sword is a scimitar. So they actually devoted a huge section of their paper the day after Elvis died with a lot of different angles about it. And I can imagine the people in the newsroom there. You know, this is the pre-internet age. If you're a newspaper person, and if you're in Memphis, you've witnessed an amazing cultural impact that the city of Memphis has had on the world. You know, you probably lived through it just in the last 15 years or so. It's a huge impact on, you know, most of the Western world. And you probably, I don't know, you'd have to have just a ton of knowledge. And when somebody, you know, a big figure like Elvis dies, the entire world would be looking to Memphis, to the newspapers there, and they would probably be reprinting whatever was said in those papers across the world. So the pressure would be pretty damn huge to get it right. And I'm guessing these are people who just knew a lot about Elvis anyway. You know, they had their whole lives to report on him, or at least their professional lives. And I had a friend, I won't say who it is because I don't know if I said this in confidence, but it was someone who worked at a newspaper in Nashville. And they said that I just asked, you know, when somebody dies and you have to write a story right then, that's a lot of pressure. You know, what do you do? And they said, you just got to know your stuff and, you know, try to take the right tone to where it feels right, and realize that people are going to reprint it. So you better get it right. There'd be a lot of pressure. I actually admire people who have that wealth of knowledge. And so the people at the Memphis Press Scimitar, definitely, I think they did a wonderful job. This is from the front page. They came at it at a few different angles and had multiple people writing about it. But the headline, this is Memphis Press Scimitar, Memphis, Tennessee, Wednesday, August 17th, 1977. It says, Memphis leads the world in mourning the monarch of rock and roll. A lonely life ends on Elvis Presley Boulevard. That's an interesting, you know, that grabs you pretty good. This is Clark Porteous, Press Scimitar staff writer. The king is dead. Elvis Presley, the jiggling, jiving rock and roll king, lived just 42 years, 7 months, and 8 days. It was an exciting but frustrating life, which ended in Baptist Hospital, where Elvis was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. yesterday of a heart attack. Elvis made millions of dollars and literally was worshipped by millions of fans, but he was lonesome much of the time. He paid a high price for privacy and could not do many things he would have liked to because he always drew a crowd of admirers. It goes on to say he was able to buy anything he wanted, yet happiness seemed to elude him. Elvis gave away countless thousands, giving funds to numerous Memphis institutions just before Christmas every year. He would give his friends and occasionally even strangers expensive automobiles. Yet as the years passed, many of his friends seemed to have faded away, not generally because they wanted to, but some said Elvis had changed. And that's an interesting thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm guessing his friends say he changed, and they don't mean that as a compliment, but the idea is we're not supposed to be the same people at 40 that we were at 19 or 22. There's supposed to be some growth that happens there, and that seems normal to me. But it says Elvis Aaron Presley was written about on his 40th birthday, and friends were quoted as saying he was fat and 40 and refused to see anybody until his weight got down to his regular trim 180 pounds. He was staying in his mansion, Graceland, on Elvis Presley Boulevard, part of Bellevue, renamed by the city founders to honor Elvis. He became more and more of a recluse in his last few years. Red West and other close friends, who used to be called the Memphis Mafia, were no longer with him. Elvis, already a living legend and somewhat of a folk hero to many, was found unconscious at Graceland at 2:30 p.m. yesterday. Maurice Elliott, Baptist Hospital Vice President, said Joe Esposito, Elvis Presley's road manager and longtime friend, called an ambulance and tried to revive Elvis with mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and heart massage until the ambulance arrived. Efforts to revive Presley continued in the ambulance and in the emergency room at Baptist Hospital. Finally, according to Elliott, Dr. George C. Nicolopoulos, Elvis's personal physician, discontinued efforts and pronounced the singer dead at 3:30. Nicolopoulos indicated a heart attack, and this was shown to be correct by an autopsy. Isn't that who Dr. Nick on The Simpsons was based off of? If I'm wrong, tell me there, but anyway. Elvis's friends who followed the ambulance to the hospital were overcome with grief and kept expressing hope that the king was not dead. Many nurses and others in the hospital had tears in their eyes when word spread that Elvis was really dead. And at Graceland, fans gathered, many weeping, at a requiem in front of the gate, which is decorated with musical notes. And then it goes on to go into a big, long biography of how Elvis became Elvis. And I don't know, I'm definitely, when we talked about Elvis, his last gig a month or so ago, I did an episode about that. There was the whole piece about the fat shaming and all of that, and a couple people mentioned like the idea that we think of Elvis as being this extremely overweight individual or whatever. When you look at the pictures, it's pretty normal by today's standards. You know, it wasn't like, you think of somebody that might be like 400 pounds or something when people describe it, but he looked like a lot of 40-year-olds look these days. And it's kind of interesting. And then when you hear his friends were talking about him being fat and 40, I would think maybe that has something to do with why they weren't hanging around Elvis that much. If that's the way your friends are talking about you, maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't have them over as often, but that's just me. There's another story here on the front page, Mourners in Waiting for Last Homecoming of Revered Singer, by Charles Goodman and Henry Bailey. A slow mist fell on the quiet crowd at the gate in front of Graceland today. They waited. It was all they could do now for the hearse that would bring their king, Elvis Presley, for his final hours at home. Then came flashing yellow lights and a rising moan of sirens, and a caravan swept in a side entrance of the grounds to avoid the crowds, which it had surged forward. A hearse entered behind police motorcycles, and the crowd watched as a copper casket was carried up the steps of Graceland and in the front door. It was 6 minutes past noon. Elvis is really dead, someone said huskily. Why did he have to leave us? Little else was said in the crowd, which on the day after Elvis's death had grown steadily in size in anticipation of a public visitation the next day. The casket would be open for those paying final tribute. And it goes on to mention celebrities that were making their way into the town already to go to his funeral, and Caroline Kennedy was one. Let's see, the crowd made way for someone bringing a large spray of roses. Moments later, a tall, bearded, leather-suited member of the Nomad family rode up on his chopper. The Nomads. Rode up on his chopper, dismounted, and without a word or a glance, strode up to the gate and tied a black ribbon on the gate. Then he strode back to his chopper and drove away. So it goes on talking about all the different kinds of people from different walks of life that actually stop by. And so yet another angle, another story here on the front page. As they often, as we found out, when someone dies, a musician, it's pretty good for business. You know, it's gone on for centuries. Artists, painters would sell the most after they're dead, and Elvis was no different. This says, the headline is, "Death Sets Off Run at Record Stores." This is from Press Dispatches. Elvis Presley records were fast disappearing today off the shelves of record stores across the nation. Hank Caldwell, manager of the Record Theater in Buffalo, which bills itself as the world's largest record store, described the demand for Elvis records as unbelievable. And is anybody here from around Buffalo? Do you remember the Record Theater, the world's largest record store? I hope that's still around. I want to go visit it if it is. The two people that come to mind that I'm friends with from Buffalo be Gerf Morlix and Peter Case. And I want to text them or so. Actually, I can't. Gerf doesn't text, but email or something. And you guys remember this place? I'm sure they'd been in there. I've never heard of it. I really hope it still exists. And if it's no longer the world's largest record store, who is and where is that? Some of you guys might know that. But people are asking for the complete catalogs on him. Our stock has been, to say hard hit is an understatement. The phone has been ringing off the hook with people asking if we have his records. We normally carry a complete stock only because he was the kind of entertainer who will always be sold. Presley's single records and albums, which sold by the millions and made him a millionaire many times over, were perhaps made more popular and surely more valuable because of his death Tuesday. A UPI survey of record stores throughout the country revealed a rush on existing stocks. Stores scrambled to place orders with distributors for fresh albums, tapes, and singles. Dan Robinson of the Record Bar in Greenville, South Carolina, said his supply of Elvis records and tapes was sold out in 10 minutes today. They bought everything we had. We had 35 albums, 12 8-track tapes, 20 singles. Pickwick, a distributor in Atlanta, told us they could not fill our order because they were committed to filling more orders than they had stock, Robinson said. At Peach's, a huge record store in Fort Lauderdale, night manager Susan Von Stanetta said they sold $700 worth of Presley albums within hours after the news of his death. That's a lot of albums in 1977 money. I remember in 76 or 77, I remember buying Kiss Destroyer on the day it was released, and it was like $5.72. So $700 worth of albums is a lot, and I love the fact this guy said he sold 12 8-tracks. That's great, Elvis on 8-track. But I don't know, there's a few things that are as good for sale as dying. So I figure when I finally kick the bucket, I hope it's in some kind of a amazing, colossal, heinous way to where some scumbag publicist can get a lot of attention, and maybe Amy can live a little bit more comfortably off of it. It's a little bit of a joke there, a little bit, some reality too. But the last thing I'll share with you is there's a little story. President Carter pays tribute to Elvis is the headline, and how many entertainers died when the president would release a press release about them. I don't know. It might have happened a lot, but I can't think of many that would be the case. It says Carter pays tribute to Elvis. This is Washington, D.C., UPI, United Press International. President Carter said today Elvis Presley permanently changed the face of American popular culture and became a worldwide symbol of his country's vitality, rebelliousness, and good humor. Those are three good qualities. The president, in a statement issued by the White House on Presley's death, said the popular singer was unique and irreplaceable. Elvis Presley's death deprives our country of a part of itself, Carter said. His music and his personality, fusing the styles of white country and black rhythm and blues, permanently changed the face of American popular culture. His following was immense, and he was a symbol to the people of the world over of the vitality, rebelliousness, and good humor of this country, Carter said. Carter said Presley burst upon the scene more than 20 years ago with an impact that was unprecedented and will probably never be equaled. But that's all just from the front page of this special edition of the Memphis Press Scimitar, and I believe there are 84 pages, and it goes on and just has a whole bunch of other Elvis stories. That's just the stuff that made it. But like I said before, where were you when you heard that Elvis had passed away? My memory is I was on the school bus, getting off the school bus, coming home from school, and I think I heard about it when the bus driver said it as I was getting off. And I remember going in the house, and my mom was sitting there watching the television crying as she just heard the news. And that's pretty much my memory of it. Like I said before, we talked about Elvis's last concert, and I'm just going to put a link up like right here so you guys can watch that. But I look forward to hearing you guys tell me your stories, and I'll see you somewhere down the road. Much love to you.